John's community was, we know from archaeological evidence, was a Eucharistic community. The people who gathered around the Gospel of John celebrated the holy meal that we celebrate every week. They participated in the offering of the bread and the wine, prayers over them, consecration, and the belief that in some way Jesus became really present to them, like he was present with his disciples, through this holy meal. So they're trying, this 6th chapter, when Jesus is talking about the bread of life, and it feels like he's forever talking about the bread of life, we're trying to figure out what the miracle of the feeding of the 5,000 and the Eucharist all have to do with Jesus' life and the life of the church. How do we understand the Eucharist today? Well, one of the important things about being an Episcopalian is we don't tell you how to think about it, right? Queen Elizabeth I that once famously said, "I have no desire to make windows into men's souls." In other words, you think what you think, and that's okay. You and God have this thing going on, and that's important, and I don't need to be a part of that necessarily. I mean, if you have questions or if you wonder about stuff, great, let's talk. But we're not going to tell you what to believe about the Eucharist, except to say, like the community that gathered around John's Gospel, we believe that Jesus becomes really present to us in the Eucharist, in the consecrated bread and wine. The doctrine of the real presence of Christ in the Eucharist. And that's as far as we go. We don't say that it's transformed into flesh and blood. We don't say that it's just a memorial. We say Jesus in some way becomes really present to us in this Eucharistic feast. Outside the context of the Eucharist, Jesus' words in today's Gospel, "My flesh is food and my blood is drink," are just downright creepy. Right? It's just weird. Like, we're cannibals now? No. We don't hear these words outside of the context of the Eucharist. And they weren't written outside of the context of the Eucharist. So when Jesus says, "My flesh is food indeed, my blood is drink indeed," it's him offering himself to us through the holy meal that takes place at the altar in the consecrated bread and wine. It can only be taken in the sense that Jesus is offering himself through the bread and wine of the sacramental meal that John's hearers would have been intimately familiar with, just as we are, just like us. The Eucharist reminds us of the self-offering of Jesus and our dependence on him for our soul's life. It provides us with a continuous supernatural apprehension of eternity. It suffuses our creative spirit of Christ and fits us for our vocation to transform the world. Wow. Those aren't my words, in case you can't tell. Those are from Sacramento theologian John Macquarie, who's probably the preeminent Anglican theologian of our time. The Eucharist reminds us of the self-offering of our Lord and our dependence on Him for our soul's life. It provides us with a continuous supernatural apprehension of eternity. We participate with heaven when we come to this altar and receive Christ in the sacrament of His body and blood. This is a point where heaven comes down to earth and earth goes up to heaven. And we are participating in this supernatural apprehension of eternity. The veil, Macquarie says, is lifted. God makes Himself known. And where hearts are ready and waiting, the sign is received. Such moments are sacramental and are possible because there is an objective reality reaching out to us, and because we are given the capacity and the grace to respond. The consecrated bread and wine become for us